Welcome to Books and More Audio, a channel for curious minds and lifelong learners who seek wisdom through the world's most influential books. Here, every story becomes a journey of discovery, blending knowledge, reflection, and inspiration. In this episode, we explore The Demon-Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark by Carl Sagan, a timeless masterpiece that reminds us why science and reason matter. It's a call to think critically, to question bravely, and to keep the flame of truth alive in a world clouded by fear, superstition, and illusion. The Light of Science. I have always believed that science is humanity's most precious creation. As a child, I would gaze at the night sky, awed by the silent shimmer of the stars, unable to fathom how they could burn so brightly in the dark. When I learned that each star was a sun, vast, distant, and ancient, something in me changed. I felt reverence not just for the beauty of the cosmos, but for the human mind's ability to understand it. That feeling, wonder mixed with humility, was what first led me to science, a world built on curiosity, reason, and hope. But as I grew older, I discovered a painful paradox. We live in an age utterly dependent on science and technology, yet most people understand little or nothing about them. Surrounded by satellites, computers, and medicine, we still cling to superstition. Many turn to horoscopes, aliens, and mysticism to find meaning. People crave miracles more than evidence, comfort more than truth. I once met a kind, intelligent man, a taxi driver, who told me he believed in Atlantis, government UFO cover-ups, and energy crystals, but had never heard of DNA or how stars are born. He wasn't ignorant. He was a symptom of a society that has failed to teach the wonder of reality. We live amid a flood of pseudoscience, stories told with confidence but no proof, appealing to emotion instead of logic. We believe because it feels good to believe. Illusions comfort us, while facts seem cold. But science teaches that truth is beautiful precisely because it is real. A flower doesn't lose its magic because we know how photosynthesis works. A star isn't less divine because we know it's burning hydrogen. On the contrary, understanding makes them even more magnificent. To see the structure of reality is to glimpse a deeper kind of poetry, one written in the language of the universe itself. Science, I've learned, is not just equations and experiments. It is a spiritual journey. It begins not with answers, but with questions. It demands humility, the willingness to say, I might be wrong. Each mistake brings us closer to the truth. Faith without evidence may soothe us, but it never frees us. Science, in contrast, liberates the mind. It replaces fear with understanding and ignorance with awe. We might ask, why seek truth if illusion makes us happier? Because truth saves us. Science, not miracles, has cured diseases, extended lifespans, and lifted billions from suffering. When we learned about microbes, we stopped burning witches. When we understood evolution, we stopped believing life was a punishment. Knowledge has always been the antidote to cruelty. Science is not heartless. It is courage in the face of uncertainty, compassion in the pursuit of truth. It doesn't promise heaven, but it gives us the universe, a vast, beautiful, indifferent cosmos where we can create our own meaning. It doesn't tell us that we are the center of everything, but it reminds us that we are made of stardust, that the atoms in our bodies were once the fire of ancient suns. That, to me, is the greatest miracle of all. That from chaos and void, consciousness emerged, capable of wonder, capable of love, capable of understanding. Science is the candle in the dark, fragile, flickering, yet strong enough to hold back the endless night. It doesn't demand faith, it only asks us to look. It doesn't require obedience, it asks us to question. And when we dare to light that candle within ourselves, even the deepest shadows begin to retreat. When belief outruns reason. Human beings have always longed for wonder. We want to believe that somewhere out there, beyond the stars, someone is watching over us. We want to think that the unexplainable must be sacred. From strange lights in the sky to faces on Mars, from prophetic dreams to whispered voices, we fill the gaps of understanding with stories that comfort us. But the more I study these stories, the clearer it becomes that they reveal less about the universe and more about ourselves, our fears, our loneliness, and our deep hunger for meaning. I've met people who swore they'd seen UFOs, who believed they were abducted by aliens, or had glimpsed vast civilizations on other planets. Their sincerity was real, their conviction unshakable. Yet when the evidence was tested, what remained were shadows. The glint of a satellite mistaken for a spaceship, a dream confused with memory, a photograph shaped by imagination. What struck me most was not the illusion itself, but the passion behind it. Once the heart decides to believe, no amount of logic can easily unseat it. I do not mock those who believe. Behind every myth of alien visitors or government cover-ups lies a human longing, the desire not to be alone in this vast and indifferent cosmos. To believe that someone out there has noticed us is profoundly comforting. But that comfort carries a price. We start to prefer stories over evidence, and soon faith replaces thought. Science does not seek to destroy that yearning. It simply asks for honesty. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, and feelings, however powerful, are not proof. There are always those who exploit belief. Conspiracy theorists promise secret knowledge, whispering that the truth is hidden by powerful forces. They turn curiosity into suspicion and skepticism into paranoia. To them, the lack of evidence becomes evidence itself. The government must be hiding it. But such thinking is a trap. When everything can be explained by a plot, nothing can be tested, and truth dissolves into fog. Many others speak of visions and voices, experiences so vivid that they seem beyond doubt. Yet neuroscience tells a humbler story. Our brains are extraordinary engines of imagination. Under stress, fear, or solitude, they can conjure entire realities, vivid as daylight. Hallucinations are not madness. They are the mind's attempt to make sense of confusion. But when we label every mystery supernatural, we stop learning. Every ghost we invent is a lesson we refuse to study. Human beings dislike uncertainty. Faced with the unknown, we rush to fill the silence with explanations, however fragile. That is why pseudoscience thrives. It offers instant answers without the burden of proof. People will pay for comfort in miracle cures, energy crystals, cosmic prophecies. Yet what they really buy is reassurance, not understanding. Science offers no such easy solace, but it offers something deeper, liberation. When we understand why lightning strikes, we stop fearing the gods. When we grasp how disease spreads, we stop burning witches. Belief can make us feel safe, but only reason can make us free. Science is not the enemy of wonder. It is the truest form of it. For the universe, as it really is far more astonishing than any fantasy we invent. Every star we see is a sun. Every element in our bodies was forged in their fire. There is no need to imagine miracles. We are already living inside one. And perhaps the greatest act of faith is not believing without evidence, but daring to face the truth without fear. The demon-haunted world. I call our age the demon-haunted world, not because I believe in spirits, but because humanity is still ruled by invisible forces of fear, superstition, and ignorance. The demons are not creatures lurking in the shadows. They are ideas that possess our minds. They whisper that emotion is greater than evidence, that comfort is more valuable than truth. And when we listen, reason fades and the darkness grows. Science, fragile but steadfast, is the candle that still dares to burn in that darkness. Human beings have always sought meaning in mystery. When faced with storms, plagues, or death, our ancestors reached for explanations they could understand: gods, curses, divine anger. In those stories, they found a sense of control. But we have changed little since then. Today, we give new names to the same fears: bad energy, cosmic vibrations, spiritual frequencies. It sounds modern, even scientific, yet beneath the surface it is the same ancient yearning to feel safe in a world we cannot fully grasp. We have traded the language of faith for the vocabulary of pseudoscience, but the impulse remains the same. In this part, I wanted to show that humanity always walks a narrow line between reason and delusion. Science asks for evidence, patience, and humility. Superstition promises warmth, belonging, and certainty. Between those two lies our eternal struggle. We claim to love truth, but we fear it because truth can be harsh and unyielding. So we invent gentler stories, that prayer cures disease, that dreams foretell destiny, that unseen hands guide our fate. In those tales we find comfort, yet lose clarity. I've met people who sincerely believe they've seen visions, angels, spirits, or messages from the dead. Their experiences feel real to them, and I do not doubt their emotion. But the mind, complex and creative, can deceive even its owner. Neuroscience shows that what we see is often shaped by what we expect or fear. Hallucinations are not evidence of another world, they are echoes of our own. The line between reality and imagination is thinner than we wish to admit. And when we stop investigating, when we accept mystery without question, we surrender to our own illusions. Science does not reject human experience. It only asks, can this be tested? If someone says they saw a ghost, the scientist does not mock them. He simply asks, can others see it too? Can we measure it, record it, repeat it? If not, then perhaps it exists only in the mind. The true miracle is not that people see visions, but that we can understand why. We don't need to invent magic to feel awe. The heartbeat, the atom, the birth of a star, these are wonders enough. That is why I wrote about therapy, not for the body, but for the intellect. The cure for superstition is not ridicule, but education. Once people learn how to think, not just what to think, they no longer need myths to feel safe. Asking questions, why? How do we know? What if I'm wrong? Is the medicine for the sickness of blind faith. Every question is a spark that keeps the candle of reason alive. The demon-haunted world is not somewhere else. It lives within us, in our fears and our longing to believe. Science does not come to destroy belief. It comes to purify it, to separate the real from the imagined. When reason shines its light, the demons vanish, not slain, but understood. I dream of a world where children are taught to question rather than obey, to seek evidence rather than comfort, to wonder rather than fear. A world where no one is punished for asking why, and where truth is not seen as a threat, but as a gift. For in the end, darkness cannot conquer light. It can only wait for us to stop tending the flame. As long as we choose to keep that candle burning, the demons will never truly return. Critical thinking and the art of doubt. I have always believed that science is not merely a collection of facts, but a way of thinking, a shield against deception, both from others and from ourselves. Human beings are born to believe. We long for certainty, for stories that make sense of chaos. But belief without examination is a dangerous comfort. The role of science, then, is not to destroy belief, but to refine it, to teach us how to think, not what to think. That is the essence of critical thinking, the art of intelligent doubt. In The Dragon in My Garage, I once offered a simple thought experiment. What if I claimed there was an invisible dragon living in my garage? You could try to test my claim, sprinkle flour for footprints, use a heat sensor, take a photograph. Yet I would always find an excuse. The dragon floats, I'd say. It's heatless. It's invisible to cameras. With every objection, I would move the goalposts until my claim became unfalsifiable, impossible to prove or disprove. And that, precisely, is how false beliefs survive. When a claim cannot be tested, it ceases to be about truth at all. Skepticism does not mean cynicism. To doubt is not to dismiss, but to care enough about truth to demand evidence. Real skepticism is an act of humility, the courage to admit I might be wrong. The great scientists, Galileo, Darwin, Einstein, were all skeptics, not because they distrusted everything, but because they trusted inquiry above authority. Every step forward in human knowledge was born from someone daring to ask, what if we're mistaken? But good thinking requires tools. I call this the baloney detection kit, a set of simple tests for evaluating any claim. Ask, what is the evidence? Can it be verified independently? Is it falsifiable? Are there simpler explanations? Who benefits if I believe this? When we apply these questions, many impressive-sounding ideas collapse under their own weight. Miracle cures, psychic powers, conspiracy theories. They all thrive in the absence of skepticism. I once spoke with a man who claimed he could heal others with his hands. He described a warm flow of energy, a spiritual vibration. I suggested an experiment, a double-blind test, where neither he nor the patient would know who was being touched. If the healing still occurred, then we would have real evidence. But he refused. Faith cannot be tested, he said. And in that moment, the line between science and superstition was drawn. Science invites challenge, pseudoscience hides from it. Yet the hardest lies to expose are the ones we tell ourselves. The mind seeks confirmation of its own beliefs and ignores what contradicts them, a trap called confirmation bias. True critical thinking begins not with distrusting others, but with examining ourselves. Every scientist must learn to live with uncertainty, to accept that even cherished theories can fall. To be wrong is not shameful. To cling to error is. In The City of Grief, I wrote that reason is not the enemy of feeling. When we lose someone we love, logic cannot erase the pain, but understanding can help us bear it. Knowing that death is part of nature's cycle does not make us cold. It connects us more deeply to life itself. Science, far from diminishing our humanity, gives it context and purpose. We live in an age overwhelmed by misinformation and manipulation. The ability to think clearly, to question, verify, and reason is no longer optional. It is survival. I do not wish for a world of emotionless skeptics, but for a society lit by small flames of awareness, where every person carries within them the simple, powerful question, how do I know? Critical thinking does not make the world less magical. It makes it honestly magical. It replaces fear with wonder and illusion with understanding. For in learning to doubt wisely, we do not extinguish the light of belief. We keep it from burning the world. Science, reality, and ethics. There was a time when I believed that as long as science was correct, that was enough. But the older I grow, the more I understand that knowledge without conscience can be dangerous. Science is a double-edged sword. It can illuminate or destroy, depending on the hands that wield it. This part is about that responsibility, the moral weight of understanding, and the need to align reason with compassion. We live in an era obsessed with reality, yet constantly running from it. Governments manipulate facts, corporations twist data, and even scientists sometimes let ambition eclipse honesty. We tell ourselves lies because they are convenient, but truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is the foundation of both science and morality. To seek truth is not only an intellectual act, it is an ethical one. I have often thought of the scientists who built the atomic bomb, brilliant minds who justified their work by saying, "We only followed orders," or "The responsibility lies with the politicians." But the truth is that the button may have been pressed by others, yet it was scientists who built it. When knowledge is separated from empathy, when curiosity serves power instead of humanity, science loses its soul. The question is not only, can we do it, but should we? In Anti-Science, I warned of a growing hostility toward reason itself. Many people reject science because they feel it steals away mystery or faith. But science is not cold, it is honest. It does not claim to know everything, it simply refuses to lie. The real danger is not scientific arrogance, but intellectual laziness, the desire to be comforted rather than challenged. Those who deny science are often the same ones who benefit most from it, from medicine, electricity, and flight. What they truly reject is not knowledge, but responsibility. I also wrote about Newton's sleep, the illusion that understanding alone is enough, that ethics belongs to someone else. But every discovery, every experiment is a moral choice. Knowledge has consequences, and pretending otherwise is itself a moral failure. Science does not possess a conscience, but scientists do, and so does every citizen who chooses what kind of world to build. When scientists know sin is not a condemnation of science, but a confession of humanity. The phrase means recognizing the moment when we cross from curiosity into harm, when discovery becomes domination. Science must never forget its purpose, not to control the world, but to understand it, and through understanding, to protect it. The world does not lack intelligence, it lacks integrity. We have learned to split the atom, but not to heal our divisions. We have decoded DNA, but not the nature of kindness. True progress demands both intellect and empathy. Science gives us power, ethics teaches us restraint. Only together do they create wisdom. Science is not at war with faith, it is at war with falsehood. It teaches that compassion, responsibility, and truth are not separate virtues, but one. A scientist guided by conscience serves humanity, one without it serves only ego. The light of reason burns brightest when it is fueled by the oil of empathy. If there is one lesson I hope to leave behind, it is this: love science, but love humanity more. For science is the lamp, and the human heart is the flame that keeps it alive. Part 6. The Marriage of Skepticism and Wonder. I have always believed that science does not destroy wonder, it deepens it. Many say that science makes the world less magical, but I see it differently. The more we understand, the more miraculous reality becomes. I call this the marriage of skepticism and wonder, the union of a rational mind and an open heart. Without skepticism, we become gullible dreamers. Without wonder, we become lifeless machines. True wisdom lies in balancing both. When I look at the stars, I don't see them as less beautiful because I know they are burning spheres of plasma. On the contrary, that knowledge fills me with reverence. Each photon that reaches our eyes has traveled across vast gulfs of time, the silent testimony of the universe's ancient fire. Understanding that we are made of the same stardust as those distant suns is not cold or mechanical, it is profoundly moving. We are not outside the universe looking in. We are the universe, awake and aware. Yet to see the world this way, we must let go of comforting illusions. Our age is filled with miracles for sale: psychic healers, cosmic energies, quick fixes for the soul. These are cheap substitutes for true awe. They offer the illusion of control, the promise that we can bend the universe to our will without understanding it. But real wonder begins when we accept how little control we truly have, and how magnificent the unknown still is. In The Wind Makes Dust, I wrote that change is the essence of existence. Everything moves: the stars, the atoms, our thoughts. Life is a great wind that stirs the dust of creation, shaping and reshaping it endlessly. We long for permanence, yet beauty only exists because nothing lasts. Science helps us see that impermanence is not loss, it is transformation. When we accept that everything flows, we can finally find peace in the movement of things. I often hear people say that questioning is disrespectful, that doubt is a sign of weakness. But I believe there is no such thing as a foolish question. Every question is a spark, a small light pushing back the dark. A child who asks, "Why is the sky blue?" is already walking the path of science. Every civilization that has progressed has done so because someone dared to ask, why? Where questioning dies, freedom dies with it. Many adults lose their sense of wonder as they grow older. They walk past a flower, a sunset, a laughing child, and feel nothing. Science, for me, is a way of remembering how to marvel again. To understand the structure of a leaf, the birth of a star, the rhythm of a heartbeat, that is to rediscover the sacred hidden within the ordinary. The deeper we look, the more miraculous reality becomes. The marriage of skepticism and wonder is not easy. It demands that we keep our minds open and our judgments cautious. It asks us to admit when we do not know and to find joy in that not knowing. It invites us to dream, but to test our dreams against evidence. It reminds us that to truly love the universe is to see it clearly, not through the fog of wishful thinking. When we live with this spirit, every discovery becomes an act of gratitude. Every aha moment is a silent prayer to the cosmos, not begging for miracles, but giving thanks for the miracle that already is. We do not need myths to make life meaningful. Life itself is mythic. The universe, vast and indifferent, gave rise to beings capable of curiosity and compassion, and that may be the greatest story ever told. In the end, the union of skepticism and wonder is what keeps the flame of science alive. It teaches us to see clearly without losing our capacity for awe, to question without despair, to understand without arrogance. And perhaps most beautifully, it reminds us that the more we learn about the universe, the more reasons we find to love it. Science and human freedom. There is an image that haunts me, a house on fire. That house is our world, radiant with potential, yet engulfed in the flames of ignorance, fear, and apathy. Many people look away, hoping someone else will save it. But science, to me, is the courage to face the fire, to step into the smoke and search for truth even when it burns. And the oxygen that keeps this courage alive is freedom of thought. Science cannot thrive in a climate of fear. It requires a society where people are free to question, to doubt, to say, "I don't believe you," without punishment. Every authoritarian system fears science because science teaches independence of mind. A scientist asks for evidence instead of authority, and that simple act is revolutionary. The ability to think critically is the enemy of tyranny. A citizen who understands how truth can be twisted will never kneel before propaganda. Protecting science, therefore, is not a luxury of progress, it is the foundation of liberty. Students often ask me, should we speak the truth if it hurts? My answer is always yes. Painful truth is still better than comfortable lies. A society that hides from truth will slowly forget how to recognize it. When deception becomes normal, justice and compassion fade. Science insists on facing reality, no matter how inconvenient. Freedom dies the moment truth becomes negotiable. In The Path to Freedom, I wrote that liberty is not the right to say whatever we want, but the ability to understand what we say. Freedom is not chaos, it is informed choice. A free mind doesn't reject authority, but examines it carefully. Science gives us the tools to do that, not to dictate beliefs, but to test them. It replaces obedience with understanding, superstition with curiosity. But the price of independent thought is loneliness. The skeptic often stands alone, surrounded by those who mistake silence for virtue. History remembers Galileo, Darwin, and Curie not because they were obedient, but because they dared to say no. Every advance in human civilization began with someone who questioned what everyone else accepted. To stand apart from the crowd is not arrogance, it is responsibility. In Significance Junkies, I explored our hunger for meaning, the need to feel that our lives fit into some grand design. That craving for cosmic importance makes us vulnerable to manipulation. We accept comforting lies, that everything happens for a reason, that unseen powers control our fate. But science offers a humbler, nobler answer. The universe owes us nothing, and yet we can still give it meaning. Purpose is not discovered, it is created, through understanding, kindness, and courage. Maxwell and the Nerds was my tribute to the quiet heroes of science, the ones who choose truth over fame, who work in obscurity for the sake of understanding. They remind us that freedom is not a gift bestowed by power, but a discipline of the mind. To think clearly, to speak honestly, to care about evidence, these are acts of rebellion in a world built on illusion. Science without humanity becomes mechanical. Freedom without knowledge becomes reckless. But together, they form the backbone of civilization. Science teaches us how to know. Freedom teaches us why it matters. Knowledge grants power. Conscience gives it direction. Only when reason and liberty walk hand in hand can humanity rise above fear. I believe that every person carries within them a small candle, the flame of reason, truth, and independence. If each of us dares to keep that light burning, the house on fire can become a house of stars. The night is long, but one candle can still hold back the dark. Responsibility and true patriotism. As I reached the end of this journey, I found myself thinking about the bond between science and citizenship. Too often, patriotism is confused with obedience, with the blind acceptance of whatever authority declares to be true. But I believe the opposite is sacredly true. A nation's strength depends on citizens who think, question, and demand honesty. Patriotism is not submission, it is responsibility. A country does not belong to its government, it belongs to its people and to the truth. In Science and Witchcraft, I reflected on humanity's darker chapters, when fear replaced reason and ignorance was weaponized. In those times, people were branded as witches, burned for their differences, silenced for their questions. Yet the same spirit of persecution lives on today in subtler forms, in the shaming of those who challenge lies, in the vilification of whistleblowers, and in the dismissal of inconvenient truths. The tools have changed, but the impulse remains, to punish the one who dares to see clearly. We must remember that those who defend freedom of thought are not troublemakers, they are the guardians of the future. A scientist who speaks truth about climate change, a journalist who exposes corruption, a citizen who refuses to look away, these are the real patriots. They fight not with weapons, but with integrity. They risk their comfort for the sake of collective awakening. And while the world often turns against them, their courage lights the way forward. In Real Patriots Ask Questions, I wanted to remind us that dissent is not betrayal, it is an act of love. A nation cannot thrive on unexamined loyalty. It must welcome criticism as a form of care, as the immune system of democracy. Science embodies this principle. Every hypothesis must face scrutiny, every conclusion must be open to revision. Why then should society operate differently? To question authority is not to destroy it, but to purify it. Blind patriotism is dangerous because it confuses symbols with values. People wave flags but forget what those flags stand for: justice, equality, truth. They glorify the past while neglecting the future. Real love of country means responsibility, to defend truth, to uphold fairness, to leave behind a world more honest than the one we inherited. This is where science becomes a moral act. Science is the promise that truth, though obscured, can always be found. It cannot be silenced by decree or erased by ideology. It survives in the hands of those who choose courage over comfort. To practice science, to seek truth no matter how inconvenient, is itself an act of patriotism. Every discovery that expands understanding makes humanity freer. We live in a time when lies travel faster than light, when fear is manufactured and doubt is sold as certainty. In such an age, we need citizens who think like scientists, who ask for evidence, who question authority, who cherish truth even when it costs them peace. Freedom is not permanent. It must be earned again by every generation, not through violence, but through vigilance, curiosity, and integrity. If I were to leave a final message, it would be this: a wise society survives only when its citizens protect the flame of reason and nurture it with love for freedom. Patriotism is not shouting the loudest. It is standing quietly but firmly on the side of truth. If each of us keeps that candle burning in our thoughts, our words, our choices, then perhaps the world will never again return to its witch-hunting days. Freedom is not a gift, it is a discipline. Truth is not a burden, it is a blessing. And patriotism at its purest is not pride, it is devotion to the shared future that reason and compassion can build together.